By the way, I'm here on Armitage, and I'll tell you why, but this Western Union, these are great by college campuses. Truly. And those check cashing places, those are great on college campuses. Truly, on college campuses. College students usually need a lot less banking services than that, but they do need cash checking places. So, and they do need money transfer places. So, and they need to get traveler's checks and so on. But here on Armitage, that's Halstead. And this is like you and I used to come down here a lot of my life, and I didn't know this existed. I never went on the side streets. But you will see down this street, and I'll take you to the first house, but right up here, this house here is $24 million. Now, it's probably worth even more than $24 million, but how much property tax does one $24 million house bring into the city of Chicago? Do the property tax calculation and tell me how much money that brings into the city of Chicago. Now, all these homes, because of that home, appreciate it, and they appreciate it big time. So all these people did get a bump, but they also got an added carrying cost, increased property tax. And that's what people complain about gentrification, but people know this in the area, and when you're building, people in the area truly have to vote on what types of house they want to be added to the area. See, gentrification doesn't have to be a bad thing, because if you do things right, people vote on what type of house they want to allow into the area through the aldermen, through the zoning. So they controlled their property taxes increasing. But what happened with that $24 million house is that the people around here, they didn't think about it. Big new house coming in. But that $24 million house revalues all this. After that house is built and evaluated by the city, then they look around at all the other houses and bump the property value. And so everybody around pays for that new house being built. That's what gentrification is. So it's a great thing. All this property went up, but they also have an annual bill for the carrying cost. So they have to pay for that added equity. So again, and I'll go into how you can use the added equity to your advantage and turn it into money. But if you allow the equity just to sit, then the carrying costs will eat away at the equity, and you'll be upside down. So if you don't know how to do proper investing, then things will turn upside down for you. But all these houses here, and this is really cool, and there's another one with witches down there, but they got these new houses coming in up here as well. So again, all the property tax in this area is an increase. As they raise the property, here's the witches and that little Halloween spirit here. But here's a new property. And these are, looks like they say luxury. I would put ultra luxury custom homes. Not luxury custom homes, ultra luxury custom homes. B, G, D, and C. Design, build, and live. Ultra luxury custom home builders. Ultra. You're the pinnacle of luxury home building. Ultra. So, anyways, so they got another one coming in here. Now, all these people here are going to get very nice bumps in equity. Very nice bumps in equity. And so here's another one coming in. So they're going to get very nice bumps in equity. And what's going to happen? The city of Chicago is going to get a lot more property tax money. Yeah, a lot more property tax money because all these properties here are going to be reappraised and they're going to have to pay more in property tax. So that's what gentrification does. But if you do it right and you control the stages of the improvements, then you control the incremental increases in property tax value, and then you can plan for the changes in the equity. And so you don't want things just, overnight change. And this is great, but you got ultra luxury, sophisticated people. These people have very high-end businesses. They're very successful. And then on top of it, you have DePaul college students. Now, if the students were smart, they would tap into the community over here and invite them for a business roundtable at DePaul University. They don't have to be alumni. They're invested in DePaul whether they like it or not, because they're invested in the community with their property, so heavily invested in the community. So they can have a business roundtable, and all these people, like Perillo, has a big insurance company and wants to grow, not only domestically, but internationally. And so he needs talent. And so this is where these people that are successful meet the student body. And so this is an offshoot of DePaul. DePaul's right down the street. So you get a mixture of undergrad, but there should be DePaul graduate and PhD students here. And so you get these different levels of students meeting very rich, successful business people. And so DePaul should invite them down for a business roundtable, and they know where the blocks are, and they just send them an invite to the community and see when they're available. And you don't set a time. You say you just want to start a conversation and then see when most of them all would be available. And the ones that can't, are they available to be on webcam? So are they available to join the conference remotely? So the ones that can physically be there, and then you have the ones that join remotely. And so they sit down and they talk to the administration of DePaul. And administration means faculty, the teachers, and administrators. Like, I don't know who is running DePaul now, the pastor or priest that's running DePaul University now. But they would sit down with them, and DePaul's behind me. I'm moving away from DePaul. But they would sit down, and then they could have different forums with the students and talking about futures of industry using the Department of Labor statistics. But from the state of Illinois, the fastest growing industries in the state, and so on and so forth, and where the opportunities are, and then where they are if you want to work, throughout the United States and abroad. And so they have this connection sitting down through the placement center, because, you want every graduate, you want to have 100% placement rate. Iowa State has 98% placement rate for their engineers. 98, almost 100%, and obviously they want 100%. So they're going to work on that other 2% and get to 100% placement. So anyone that goes there, they get, because students have sued universities before and won because they couldn't get placed after they got their degree. And this is why I bring up all the archaeology and everything. And you have to understand, if you're going into it like archaeology, you have to get a master's. You can work for an archaeologist, you can work for the museums and that, but you're going to be very entry level, because to move up anywhere, you have to have a master's in archaeology. It's just like psychology. If you're a psychology major, you have to have a master's, because if not, then you're not really working in psychology. You can't be a therapist or anything else. You have to get a master's. But do they tell you that when you start out? Like my friend Kevin, he was an archaeology major. And I told them, you took a major that a lot of businesses, you have a unique market. And to get into that market, you have to have a master's. You only have an undergraduate degree. So he was struggling for a few years to get a job because he didn't know that, oh, well, if I studied archaeology, I get my undergrad, I'll find a job. No, you study archaeology, you get the undergrad, that's the start. You have to get a master's. Or you're basically not working. So it's just like psychology. You study that, you got to get a master's. Unless you're going to go into another field that has nothing to do with psychology directly. So you can move into marketing and other aspects. So you might be able to jump into another field that uses psychology, but you have to learn how to use social media and all the other marketing tools. So it's just not understanding psychology. Number one, they want you to know how to use all the marketing tools correctly. So you'll have to get at least a minor in marketing. You can have a major in psychology, but you should at least get an associate degree in marketing. And once you get the associate degree, you don't need a 4-year degree, but associate's degree in marketing. I don't know if a certification in marketing would do with a psychology degree. They want some years under your belt. So I would say a 2-year degree, associate degree, and then with some internships for marketing firms while you're getting your associate's degree if you want to, be very stable. So they have to tell you this, and they don't tell you this with the programs that, okay, if you get your law degree and you go to law school, but, things are tight now, and what else you can jump into with a law degree? Truly, what other things can you go into, other related fields that would take a lawyer, but you'll have to do some additional training, but you can use your law degree. It has enough base. Like my teacher, he became a financial planner. He had an engineering degree. And what was good about the engineering degree? The mathematics. That's why they took him, because he had a lot of math background. So engineers have a lot of math, and that works very well with financing, but he had to take additional training. And what did he do? He went to school to get his CFP. So he got his other education in finance by getting his CFP. He left engineering and he took his math degree, and then he had to get his education. So there was a lag for him, and he could have, I don't know if he did an internship or not, but he could have did an internship. He ended up working for Northern Trust as a financial planner and teaching at Northwestern University for the CFP program. But he left there, and he had to get his CFP to get all his knowledge into financial planning. But the math background allowed him to jump into becoming a financial planner. So it was the math part of engineering that made the transition easier. So anyways, and that's why sometimes engineers become CFAs and that, because they have an extensive amount of background in mathematics. So mathematics applies to almost everything. You can go in and work for a food company and be a food scientist, kinda. You can get into it if you have a mathematical background. Then you have to get the chemistry background. So you have to, it's a little bit different mathematics, but it's still mathematics. And you'll have to get some training in chemistry and start understanding it, particularly food chemistry. But you already have a substantial base in mathematics, so you can get some training in food chemistry, and that allow you to move into the food science business. So they have to understand how there's alternatives because maybe not everybody can be placed correctly or will be happy in the legal field once they get a law degree. And so you don't necessarily have to do law with a law degree. And they should tell you that there are these other areas, but they will acquire some additional training on your part. But since you have the law degree, you'll have a competitive advantage once you get the additional training. Or you have an engineering degree, and once you get the additional training, you'll have a competitive advantage. So, but you need the additional training. And so it's not like you're going to hop into it. But again, it's somewhat fungible. So, anyways, and I like this area because there were lots of girls. So anyways, up here is North Avenue. So you go back to Fullerton Avenue. This is along Halsted. And if you go further up, what do you have? The new casino at Halsted in Chicago. This is a Halsted corridor. So you go back there, and let's just start with DePaul University. And then you start moving south down Halsted. And then you go from DePaul University into this high-end luxury home area in Lincoln Park off of Halsted. And then you go further up and you run into the new casino on Halsted in Chicago. And then you go further up Halsted to Randolph Street. And then you get the whole Randolph and Halsted, the food area. And then you go further up and you get right there Fulton Market as well. So you get this whole Halsted corridor that interconnects, and this is where DePaul can take advantage of all this corridor that's coming here, all these things that are coming, and they can do these business forums and that. There's a mall up here that's the New City Mall. That's small, but it's right up here on Halsted, just on the other side on Halsted and Clybourne. So there's opportunity. So you got this building, and I forget my one friend, we went over here to eat at one of these places a long time ago. He's a black man I haven't seen in a long time, and extremely religious. Good guy. Seriously good guy. And he was in the food industry, and I met him through the hospitality industry. But all around, great guy. So, but I haven't seen him in a long time. But he was doing things, and I was helping him do things on the religious side. He was with this church and trying to do some revival and so on, and he had Bin 34 wine bar, and just all around great guy. But anyways, you have these tracks and that. It needs to be updated. And there's a lot of shopping up here. So students from DePaul can work in these shopping. Truly, they need college students to work in these places. There's CB, that's Crate and Barrel, but they call it CB2, Crate and Barrel 2. And so they have that. They have a lot of stores where DePaul students can work. So there's a lot of work opportunities for DePaul college students down here. And there are hospitality, restaurants and that they can work in. So there's a very good placement. If you're a placement person, work with college students. No placement services think of working with college students. But I worked for temporary services and that, but they didn't work directly with college students. But they could have around the University of Arizona, and there was a woman I worked with at the placement service. She owned a placement company that I worked for, and she placed us in different hotels for banquets. So I worked as banquet staffs at Holiday Inn and some of these smaller, hotels that don't have banquet staffs, and they did have function rooms, and we work with them, and they have a few people that were on staff, but they needed a lot more for their functions. So you can open up a placement service company that works with undergrads, graduate, and PhD students. They need placement, they need internships, but they also need placement into money. So part internship, part placement, and a placement service can place people in internships. So you can create a placement service that specializes in placing college students in internships. So you tell them what they need, and you hold seminars on the DePaul campus, and you talk about your placement service and how you can help them and further their education, how you can get them their practical experience, their applied, taking all their theoretical knowledge from college and putting them in different work environments to help them get the practical application, the applied application of the knowledge, and this enhances their knowledge. So when they graduate, they come out even that much smarter because they got book smart and street smart. Book smart and street smart come together, and you got wisdom. Without it, you just have knowledge. But wisdom is a combination of street smart and book smart. Applied knowledge and theoretical knowledge meeting together, that makes wisdom. So when you have the knowledge, because you have the applied skills, you apply the knowledge, the theoretical, effectively, properly. So that means when you apply it, you don't make mistakes, because in application, you need to adjust the theoretical to fit the real world. So you'll tweak the theory so it makes it effective in the real world. And so that's why internships are so vital in the development. And so you can have the company, and you could work with Roosevelt University, UIC, and all these different colleges, North Park, you name it, and you can help them, place them in opportunities. Truly, the culinary, National Louis, and they have Kendall College, and you can place them in restaurants, and they can work as waiters, bartenders, work in the kitchen, busboys. Truly, they need to learn what a busboy does. They need to learn these different things, so they need to be it. Like my friend Eliud, he worked for us. He went to the University of Arizona. He was the president of SIGEP, and he was my barback at El Charro. And me and Brian Wooding were, seniors, basically his elders, and you would say I'm an alumni of Sigma Phi Epsilon. And so me and Brian and Eliud worked for us, and I was senior to Brian. So anyways, it was a good relationship. 3 SIGEPs behind the bar at El Charro, and the guy who owned the place, Ray, he was Sigma Chi. He was in the Sigma Chi fraternity. And then his other friend, Sean Stushin, who invested and put up money to help build out the place, was a Fiji. So you have Sigma Chi with Fiji, with SIGEPs, owning a Mexican restaurant. So these fraternal people working together. And so my friend created, Josh created a Traddy, which was people from all the fraternity. It was a fraternity of the fraternities. So it took the best people from each fraternity. Truly, it was like a grad school for fraternity members. So each of the fraternities only had so many members that were in traditions. So it was only their best people. And so you had a few people from SIGEP, like Andy Lytle, and a few people from Sigma Chi and ZBT and others that were in tradition, but it was only their top people. So you, just because you were a fraternity member didn't mean you were going to get in. You had to be the best of the best in the fraternity to be part of traditions. So, and they can open up a traditions down here at Lake DePaul. And then one for UIC. I don't know their fraternal system. And I don't know what Roosevelt's fraternal system. And then you can have traditions for sororities. So taking the best of the best from each of the sororities and putting it into this elite situation. But you have to be a senior member. So this is not for, newbies in the fraternity, new members. You have to be several years into the fraternity and have had to prove yourself that you're this outstanding, exceptional member of this fraternal organization. Then you apply to traditions, and if you meet that standard, and if not once, then you can try to apply the next year. So it's a fraternity to fraternities, a sorority to sorority, or it's a fraternity of fraternities, and it's a sorority of sororities. And to be in it, you have to be the best of the best from the fraternities and the best of the best from the sororities. So anyways, there's great opportunity, and somebody can start it down here. So there's lots of opportunities in this world. And this corridor here, and I'll travel up the corridor so I can get away from the big city bright lights behind me. Light pollution. So anyways, people being annoying. They're supposed to be pleasant. You're supposed to raise ladies and gentlemen, not scumbags. So the city never talks about this common code of how to be somebody who's from Chicago. My friends from New York and that, what is it to be a New York person? What is it to be a Los Angeles person? And at the University of Arizona, we used to talk about that. What is the essence of somebody from Chicago? What is the essence of somebody from New York, and so on? What are these people like? What are their focuses, and so on? So I never knew there was a Chicago accent, but I found out there was. Because people made mistakes and didn't know from Los Angeles. They said, oh, you're from New York. And then all the New Yorkers go, nah, he's from Chicago. I see you. He's from Chicago. So I'm like, how do you know? Because you have an accent, buddy. Oh, that's right. There's a Chicago accent. So everybody here thinks there's no accent. Everybody here if you're born here, you will have a Chicago accent. You say things in a certain dialect. So there's a unique Chicago dialect. So it's different. So this is the Halsted Corridor. Like in New York, the people that are from the Egg, the Hamptons and all that, they talk totally different than people from New York City. Truly, it is unbelievably, it is a totally different dialect altogether. It is so easy to say, oh, you're from the Hamptons. So the show doesn't have the Hamptons that I watch. They don't have the Hamptons dialect. So it's okay. It's a concierge medical show, but they don't have the right dialect. So they don't live up there. If you've ever gone there and you experience people from there and so on, but most people, they don't know what this dialect is or that dialect, so they have no idea. But when you get people in the know, then they're like, hey, you're not from here. So the beautiful view, the Halsted Corridor, and now this video's, I guess, going to YouTube. But anyways, there should be a park here or something. They just let this sit here, but they could put baseball fields or something and put some use to it while they're determining on what it could be. And there's a big casino coming in, so maybe make it a beautiful park. So again, we're going down the Halsted Corridor. Every street, there's the Milwaukee Avenue Corridor, the Elston Corridor, This is the Halstead corridor. And so what we're coming up on, and so I wonder how this is, and you've heard about it in other videos if you've ever watched, what is going to happen to this with the casino going in? You're coming in and building an extremely high-end luxury property, and how are you going to accent this luxury property and beautiful view of Chicago? Camera doesn't really do it justice because it doesn't refocus and that, but you could have autofocus and it can take out the glare and, improve it automatically. It would adjust. It adjusts the shutter and everything else to make sure that you're getting the best view automatically. So you can choose things, or you can just let it do itself and it self-adjusts to give you the best image possible. So that's what artificial intelligence is supposed to do, right? So it adjusts it for you. It does the work, you do the shooting. So you don't worry, it'll always come out the best. So that's what's supposed to happen with artificial intelligence, right? Keeping it simple, stupid. So it looks like, wow, that was a beautifully shot video. Yeah, thank Samsung for that. So I'm a fan of South Koreans and North Koreans too. So anyways, and I bought a Samsung watch and that because the head of Samsung, that part was a female. So I remember when she took over that segment of Samsung. So in honor of her taking over that, I bought a watch in support of her taking over that division of Samsung. So I supported her being the first female to lead this division within Samsung. So it was like, I kind of do things behind the scenes that way in my buying habits, but I would assume some other people do that as well. Like I know people that invested in water funds and they didn't want to make money so much as they wanted to invest in the water funds so other people could get clean water. So they wanted to make sure there was enough money in the water fund so they could go out and create good, clean water resources for people that were in challenged positions. So it was less about the rate of return and it was more about the philanthropy. So that's the social conscious funds. You don't do it for so much of rate of return as you do it to improve lives. And as you improve lives, it comes back and, has this positive effect on you, and you can publish what they can give you. Like you get badges for how much you invest in it. And then you can see you did this socially conscious thing. You invested in a water fund, and we've helped 100,000 people or 1 million people get better drinking water or cleaner farming water or whatever. Or we purified industrial water, or we cleaned up wastewater. And so you do it because you have more of a social conscience than you're looking for an economic return. It's more of a social return than a money return. And you'll get a little bit of positive upside because it needs to make money so it can continue on. So it goes to at least be neutral, a rate of return that covers its expenses so it can keep on keeping on. So anyways, so this is the Halstead corridor. Now you run into this where Milwaukee Avenue crosses and Elston Avenue crosses and Grand Avenue. And you get this bars and restaurants around here. And so it's a little area. But now we go under this bridge. This is a commercial railroad track, and on the other side of this, you're coming out into Fulton Market. This is where, Google is and all the high-end technology, but you also have a lot of culinary, Hamburger University by McDonald's and so on. So you have a lot of culinary going on in this area as well. And you have technology integrating with culinary, and so you get culinary technology. Culinary technology. And so they should be working with each other to improve the culinary field. How can technology help chefs prepare better dishes, be more consistent in their mixing, and so on and so forth, presentation, and on and on. And so this is on the other side of where the new casino, that's back on Chicago Avenue and Halstead. And we're traveling south, and we're going to come up here on Fulton Market, and I'll turn into Fulton Market. And that's before Randolph. Randolph's a little bit farther in Halstead, but Randolph is a culinary street altogether. And so you get a lot of morons around here. This is supposed to be where the educated are, right? And the sophisticated. When you're educated and sophisticated, I went to operas and to the symphony and to other, and people are very well mannered, very well cultured, very well spoken. They carry themselves very well. Well, I guess these people don't meet that criteria here, because this is supposed to be highly sophisticated, right? And they have this, all these high-end corporations and so on, and culinary arts are down here, and this is supposed to be, yes, artsy-fartsy. So I'll keep on going straight. But that's the Fulton Market. So you think people would be highly cultured, right? That's their target market. And these highly educated, sophisticated. It doesn't mean money. It means highly educated, highly sophisticated in what they do. And yes, it leads to money, but not initially money. So people have the education and the sophistication and etiquette before they get the money. They have the good foundation, and good foundation leads to opportunities, and those opportunities bring them the wealth. So you have to start with real foundations. And when you have really good real foundations, then you build on top of those, and it's a natural, it's a given. It's not if you're going to reach it, it's just when you're going to reach it. So people with really good foundations always succeed. So I'm down here and it's busy. This is Lake Street. They're supposed to be expanding this, so like all these are, the track here is on the sidewalks. You see the pillars and support for the elevated line, they're on the sidewalks down here, so they don't block the street. But on Wabash and that, they're in the street. And so there's areas where they're on the sidewalks, and there's areas where they're in the street, which creates unbelievable congestion. So, and this is all the fault of the city planners. So all this is happening because it's poorly designed. So I went to school, like Dominic should have stayed in his field, urban development. Ray Carabata, he was in urban development. They were in the city planning. That was their foundation. That's what they graduated with. And there's a big need for urban developers, city planners. So they design things correctly so you get the flows and the movements and so on, and you don't get all the congestion and pollution and disgust and disgrace. So I don't know where all the city planners are, but they're doing a pretty horrible job. You hear the beeping and the congestion. That's a failure of the city planners. They're putting too much in too little, and they need to figure out how to alleviate the congestion. So, and you beep the horn, they take out the horn in the car. So horns are only for emergencies. Truly, only for emergencies. And you say you need to beep them. Well, people need to know how to drive. So I believe in revoking licenses. So I'd rather revoke your license and see what it's like without a vehicle, and maybe you won't be an animal anymore. Because taking away privileges are a timeout, right? So you don't want to beat them. Okay, let's just take away the privileges. And I don't mean you get to go on Uber or Lyft. You got to walk. I want hard knocks. So you have to hump it. So got to leave early in the morning. It's going to take me 2 hours walking in the freezing snow and rain to get to work. Too effing bad. So it teaches people to appreciate what they have. When you truly make them feel the loss of not having it. So that's how you get spoiled brats, because they always have it. But when you take it away, die on a table and see if you value life. I've almost drowned and died many times. And you start learning to value life. So when you're at the edge of it, you start appreciating it. And so these people, what the hell have they experienced? How many times have they been at the tip of losing their life? And so you talk about losing it all, well, then that's all in this world is your life. So you start coming out with a different perspective. So usually you start getting to appreciate it a little bit. And that's why the pastor who blew out the brains of the guy and he went to juvenile, he turned over a new leaf and realized, life can be lost in an instant, and I was the one that took it in a second. And he's like, I don't want that for my life, and I don't want it for other people's lives. So I'm going to go out there and try to prevent it, which is righteous. I agree with that. So he tried to go out and make sure, but he was trying to reform people. I wanted him to go out and prevent it. Get in the streets, destroy it, break up the gangs, get them. Truly, how do you break them up? By getting people not joining them and then converting the member. That's why I like the movie American History X. He ends up in prison, he reforms, he learns, and then he goes out and he tries to break it up. So, but the whole point is he was a liar. He wasn't doing this because it was the right thing. He was doing it just to milk people. My posts are about truly what is right and wrong in society and how things have changed in demographic, and because it benefited you, you think it's right. Just because you got a benefit doesn't mean you should have received that benefit. There's a big difference. Just because your life is better doesn't mean it should have been better. So there's a big difference. That's why the Bible says nothing given, everything earned. And so it's teaching you to be discerning. And so I've turned down many positions and lots of money because I don't think I was ready or I deserved it as yet. So I was discerning, and when I could take the responsibility, I assumed the responsibility. And I assume that's when God came to me and told me who I was, because I was now fully ready to assume the responsibility of my role. That's why Jesus' ministry didn't start to 33. Because he wasn't fully ready to assume the responsibility of his role. Now, he was doing some things, but he wasn't fully responsible to take on this burden. But by 33, he was fully responsible and he stepped into his ministry. And so I was ready and I stepped into my ministry. So I was fully deemed ready by the Lord. as Jesus was fully deemed ready by the Lord. So I don't take on anything, and as the Bible says, God only gives you what you can handle. And so I was fully ready to accept the responsibility of my position. So other people may think not. And, oh yeah, Sublime right here, this place. I went to American Business Express meeting, and they gave us a nice book and everything. And it was American Express helping small businesses. So you have the hospitals down here. This is the medical corridor now in Chicago. And now you have the basketball courts and tennis courts, and these can be squash and pickleball. You can play squash here, pickleball. You can have badminton. Truly, you can have badminton and all the racket sports. And so it's not only tennis uses a racket. Now, you can't play ping pong there, but you could get a bigger ball and make it like pickleball is a little bit bigger, but you can even get a bigger ball, and it has to be lighter, but it can be with a racket, and you can make a different version of ping pong that you can play on a tennis court. So tennis is really ping pong. Ping pong is really tennis, right? Yes, it is. But you don't serve the same. That aspect of the game is different, but ping pong and tennis are exactly the same. So this is more of the medical corridor, and a church is getting revitalized. So we're moving down here. So a lot of doctors live around here. A lot of nurses, a lot of hospital administration. They tend to live in this area. So you would assume that this area, it has the potential to boom. Truly, to boom. But has it? Not really. And I don't know what the city is doing to, what it has planned for this corridor. You can have a incubator here, a 1871 medical incubator opened up down here. And they work with medical devices, they work with pharmaceutical products, technology for administration and many other things. And you can have a medical incubator down here working in all different types of the medical field. So that technology aspect down here, going around Rush Hospital and Cook County and many others, and I think UIC somewhere and so on. But anyways, Rush is right in front of me, but you have a 1871, they have a spin-off, the medical incubator. And so they open up down here, and there's so many things. An incubator for how to build hospitals, advancements in hospital design and functionality and material that goes into the hospitals and so on, because you have to have non-toxic, non-allergic materials that go into the hospital. The materials in the hospital can't cause allergies. They have to be antiviral and many other things. So you have a construction incubator that's part of the medical incubator that focuses on building doctors' offices and, hospitals and hospital rooms and so on and so forth, and nursing stations and you name it. And then they have to have the medical incubator security component, right? They have fire security and all the other different aspects of security. So, inventory controlled. Security controls the inventory. They're supposed to control and check all the pharmaceuticals, and it has to be separate from the doctors. That's securities, but you have to have somebody that understands pharmaceuticals. They're not doing the logistical ordering, but they are maintaining and tracking the inventories, making sure that doctors, and they tend to take amphetamines and other things, and doctors do it they ended up getting addicted from one thing on cocaine. They take the cocaine, medically graded cocaine, amphetamines, and other things, and doctors do get hooked on. But that's security's responsibility to track all that inventory and make sure that inventory doesn't get tainted, that no one's messing with it or anything else. So that's part of the medical security of the incubator. So it comes down here into this medical corridor. And here's Rush, and it's Joan and Paul. Rush, I don't know. The Shingler Tower. Anyways, and it's right off here, off the expressway. So easy access in, easy access, and then there's Rush Children's Hospital. And so, again, and I don't know, they have residency programs, and I would assume they're attached to a college somewhere that offers a medical school as well, because these teachers can teach, and here's a school. Midwest Orthopedics is a college. So maybe Midwest Orthopedics is part of Rush. It's a medical college. So, again, the doctors from Rush, like my friend Simon from Northwestern, he has a practice at Northwestern and has a private dermatological practice, and he also teaches at Feinberg Medical School. So Union Health Services back there. But he teaches as a teacher, and he has a very healthy, a very well-off practice, and his partner is an Indian guy. I never met his partner, but his partner is a Indian doctor, an Indian dermatologist, and I don't know what his specialty is. Simon's is skin cancers and other skin contagions. So as he says, he's not a pimple popper. Yes, he's not dealing with acne, but he's dealing with all kinds of Ebola, would be in Simon's corridor. Yes, Ebola and other infectious diseases of the skin is exactly what Simon does. So skin cancer, infectious diseases of the skin. If you look him up, Simon Yu at Northwestern, that's what he does. These diseases of the skin. And we're talking the derma, the exterior skin. And so that's Ebola is one of them. It's a flesh-eating disease. But there are many other skin diseases. So I don't know what his Indian doctor, his partner, specializes in within the skin realm. Maybe he's a pimple popper. I have no idea. Maybe he specializes in acne. I don't know. But hair implants, Simon's done hair transfers. So, and he was the one, and we were talking about, how a proper implant is done with hair implants, follicle implants, and so on. He's done them himself. But that's not what he specializes in and doesn't necessarily focus on. But it's part of the skin. And so he has training and understands that area of the field. And so, anyways, and then we're getting up here, and UIC's up here. UIC's on Halstead. So, University of Illinois, Chicago, and then they have their hospital and so on. So, again, the medical incubator. So, a spinoff of 1871. So, 1871 can have other subsidiaries, and they can also go public. Yes, they can be the first incubator to list shares on the Chicago Stock Exchange. Yeah, the Chicago Stock Exchange first. I want to see some exclusive listings to the Chicago Stock Exchange, where you have to purchase the listing through the Chicago, not NYSE, but the Chicago Stock Exchange. It's an exclusive listing. 1871 does it, and they ring the bell at the Chicago Stock Exchange, which is an hour later than New York. New York opens before Chicago. In New York, it's 9 o'clock. It's 8 o'clock in Chicago. Chicago opens an hour later than New York. closes an hour later than New York. When it's 5 o'clock in New York, it's only 4 o'clock in Chicago. So the exchange closes an hour later here. So if you're doing trading, you got New York you can start with and do your trades, and then eventually Chicago will open. And then if you're doing late trading, New York will close, but you can continue trading in Chicago for another hour. So there's 1 hour difference in the morning and evening, and you can do different tradings, but it would be 1871 doing its public listing on the Chicago Stock Exchange. And I want the Chicago, and I've been trying to get the Chicago Stock Exchange to become prominent. And so I've done a lot of things. I'm trying, but behind the scenes, I don't know if they've taken hold, but I've been trying to make the Chicago Stock Exchange a world-class leader, but they need issues. They need these incubated things that are at 1871 to list their stocks at the Chicago Stock Exchange instead of going to NASDAQ in New York or NYSE or they list them at the Chicago Stock Exchange. And then, it's beneficial to the Chicago futures and options market and swap market. And then they can issue debt on the Chicago Board of Trade deals in all kinds of debt. And so they can have these exclusive issues. Here's the UIC. Here's Halstead. Here's the Halstead corridor that goes down into UIC, and go further down, it eventually ends up, if you go further down, you have to make a left and head east, and it goes into Chinatown. So, yeah, one thing I don't really drop things. So I might get startled, but dropping things is not a me. That's why I never dropped any of the footballs. I was perfect. I never fumbled the ball, ever. I never made a bad snap. The exchange between me and the quarterback were perfect. Never, ever fail. Excellence before God. And I showed God excellence in all I do, and even in the bedroom. He watches everything I do, and I show him excellence, excellence, and excellence. So anyways, now we're heading east down Roosevelt towards the lakefront. And we'll run into Michigan Avenue and the Magnificent Miles. They should change it, not to the Magnificent Mile, but the Magnificent Miles. Because Michigan Avenue is multiple miles. And so now they change it to the Magnificent Miles Association. Miles with an S at the end now. So they can include North and South Michigan Avenue. I don't know where you're going to go because the guy behind me doesn't have a tank. Unless he's going to hit me, but that's all he can do is hit me. He can't run over me because he doesn't have a tank, so I'm not worried about it. So he's not going to go anywhere, and I see this, so it shows the intelligence level of black people. Not so intelligent. So they show their stupidity. And as a smart person would do, they're very humble, so they don't let you know how dumb they are. Black people are very dumb. They show their stupidity. They literally yell it and show it, and they show how dumb they are. But by being humble, grace, you don't show your bad points. And then you can work on your bad points, and people will perceive you as better. You show it, and people perceive you as less. And rightfully so. You're showing who you are. You're underdeveloped. So God tells you to be humble. Develop yourself. Jesus had to develop himself. He didn't take his ministry to 33. I had to develop myself. Mine started later. Where he left off, mine started at 38, where Jesus left off. It's funny how my breakdown in my ministry started at 38 years old. Jesus left off at 38. His started at 33. It ended at 38. Mine started at 38. Everything leads to me finishing what he started. My ministry started at 38. And there are others say his ended at different times and started. But all the stuff I read, it started at 33 and ended at 38. Mine started at 38. And is an ending. So, again, where he left off, I picked up. So, we're down here, and here's the Roosevelt, the multiple lines, the orange, green, and red line here. So, elevated and subway lines right here come together. And so you got the purple line as well. I don't think there's a white line, but there could be. But anyways, so we're down here, and again, this is a very high end. Again, now we're talking income levels. Now you have those very rich, but there's not a lot of them. But there's a lot more down here had the highest income level. But it has lots of people living in these areas, in these high-rises. So, again, this is generating a fortune for the city of Chicago in property tax. Unbelievable amount of money. And as this area becomes better, what happens? The city doesn't have to raise property taxes. It has to improve the quality of life. And by improving the quality of life, property taxes improve because you get appreciation in real estate. So you don't have to do anything but improve the quality of life, and the real estate will become more valuable, and the city will generate a fortune in property taxes. But Rahm did it wrong. Mayor Daley, I got to give him props. He didn't raise property taxes. Now, he did sell off the Skyway and the meters, but he didn't want to raise property taxes. He wanted to add value to the city. So he focused on beautifications and getting rid of the graffiti, cleaning up the bathrooms, improving the streets, beautifying the parks and other things. And truly, the waterway, he got rid of Meigs Field and made Northerly Island, and then he had these whole plans to renovate. He did Museum Park. I'll turn in here. This is all Mayor Daley. He did all the stuff by Cabrini Green, got rid of it, and the Montgomery Wards building and all that stuff. That's all Mayor Daley. That's all his initiatives. So in one way, I had an issue, but in another way, I respect the things he truly did that blessed this city. And, and he did move the cops around and did employ him effectively because he was a prosecutor. And so he was very tough on crime. And so his wife was a great lady. He was a good man, but his wife was pure. His wife was much better than him. And that made him a better man, because he would have drifted a lot, but Maggie Daley was very good person. God rest her soul. She died of cancer. Like Lute Olson, my basketball coach, his wife was extremely good person, and it kept him on a proper course, and Maggie Daley helped keep Mayor Daley on a proper course, and that's why men and women work together. Her conservative nature made sure that Mayor Daley didn't stray too far from the reservation. Now, he did make some mistakes, but it would have been worse off without Maggie Daley. And Lute Olson wouldn't have been the coach he was without his wife. So keeping him from straying too far. So anyways, this is my home I called Harry Potterville. And this is Prairie. And I used to live at 1515 South Prairie. Yeah, I moved in and lived there for a while. So I did actually live here for a while. but I really never got to appreciate it because I was working like 18-hour days, maybe with travel and that more. So I was never really here. So anyways, this is my building that was here, 1515 South. It was built by a female. Designed by maybe her, but I know built by her. So I moved into a building that was built by a female construction person, and she was from San Diego, California. And so she built numerous buildings around here. And she just needed a better financial manager. That was her problem. She wasn't teamed up with a good financial CFO, financial advisor, and so she made some mistakes. But her buildings were nice. And so she built a lot in this area. But this is all because of Mayor Daley. McCormick Center, because of Mayor Daley. Redoing Soldier Field, was Mayor Daley. Now, he didn't do that right. It should have been a dome and a little different design. And then it became this mistake on the lake. And then they said it looked like a spaceship landed in Soldier Field. All of that is true. So, but this area existed because Mayor Daley moved in this area. And then he could have moved further down south and continued building the city. But none of the mayors, unless you go back to Jane Byrne, who started. But the sad thing about Jane Byrne is she didn't get a second term. But she moved into Greeny Green, and she brought law enforcement with her, and she was trying to... So she lived in the housing projects. How many mayors do you know move into the housing projects? Mayor move into the projects themselves. She moved into the projects. I don't see Brandon Johnson moving into the projects. I don't know if we have any more projects. But they did, and Mayor Daley, I give him, moved down here when the neighborhood was extremely rough. Now, he did have some police come with him, but he still moved into an area that was underdeveloped, and he helped develop it. So he doesn't get a lot of credit for the things he did, but he did a lot of good things. So, in one way, I like Richard Daley, and the funny thing is, his second wife is a black lady. He married a black woman, and he moved into Michigan, but she's a black female. I don't know who she is, but he married a black female. His first wife was a white Irish lady, like himself. He's Irish. His second wife was a black female. So, and I don't know what her history is at all. I just know he met her and fell in love with her, and they're happily married. So, interracial. First was a Caucasian, second wife, a black lady, interracial. So, again, I don't know how he's having her speak to the black community, because if I was him, I would have his wife, since she's a black woman, and particularly start a black women's group and then move through black women into black men and work through them into the black community. So through her. So leveraging her strength. And he can give her all kinds of administrative advice and everything else, and help this community turn a new leaf. So I've been waiting. I've been talking to realtors and, prominent black people for a while, working with the missions, trying to get this to change. And it's driving me crazy. So, anyways, he did McCormick Place, and he expanded it. And as you know, Chicago's tourism and convention business was going through the roof. It was one area that was rapidly growing. I don't know about any more, but here's Wintrust Arena, and we're down here at the McCormick Place, and it's a beautiful Saturday night. So they can do a big Halloween show. You can even have all the people that are involved in Halloween you can have a function for all the companies, a convention of all the people that are involved with Halloween. That means Halloween movie producers, Halloween TV shows, Halloween theatrical shows, Halloween costume makers, Halloween candy, you name it, and you have a convention here at McCormick Place. All things Halloween. And so it's domestic, but Halloween is also in Mexico. It's All Souls, and so it's the same thing. It's Halloween down there under a different name. So again, they can have the convention here at McCormick Place. And so again, we can have a Halloween incubator in Chicago. 1871 Halloween incubator. And then they have the convention down here, and they try to bring more technology and more advancements into Halloween. And then there's, for each of these holidays, people are trying to deepen and enrich them, like Easter and Thanksgiving and Christmas and New Year's Eve. These are their own industries. These are industries. These are big events that happen once a year, but they have lots of industries that are dedicated. Like the whole month of October is basically all kinds of Halloween parties and everything. And then November is all about Thanksgiving, and December is all about Christmas, and January is all about New Year's. And so these are literally month-long things, and these industries, it's not all year round, but preparation for them happens all year. So 11 months of preparation for 1 month of celebration. Truly, 11 months of preparation for 1 month of celebration. So you have all those industries prepping for 11 months for a month of celebration. Truly, but they are industries. Now, they're not, you would say, enormous industries, but on a global scale, they're pretty freaking big. And so they want to improve the technology, like food technology, improving food for Thanksgiving and food for Halloween, all the Halloween cookies and cakes and different foods. Truly. And so there's food technology in the Halloween food and Thanksgiving food, Christmas food. It's different types of food. Christmas and Halloween and Thanksgiving, you don't have the same types of food. So each of them are a little bit different. And then you have this. So I'm down here in this area, and this is Bronzeville, I think, or down here, and you have another hospital. But look at this street. This is why I said you turn the Michigan Avenue Association into the Michigan's Avenue Association. This is Michigan Avenue. Down here, it's honorary Martin Luther King Drive, but it's Michigan Avenue. So I think it's still Michigan Avenue. But look down here, and it's 3 lanes. It's wide. It's beautiful. It's on both sides. It's a great thoroughfare with a great medium. And this is primarily all black. And I've been talking to black realtors all the time. Rocky used to work for a Century 21 office that it was a black female who owned the office, and I had conversations with her, but I met other black realtors, male and everything. And I don't understand why they want to destroy their community, where down here, if they do the right thing, this can be an incredible life. You're right off the lake. There's a beautiful church down here. And this just goes all the way down. And you have, on the other side, you got Lakeshore Drive, and you go down to Hyde Park if you keep on going straight. So you can go to Hyde Park through Lakeshore Drive, or Hyde Park just continuing straight down here. And this is all of what black people own majority of all this is black people. So do black people want to move out and give it away? Why should they? They can bring the community up together and they can get richer together. And I don't know who's the alderman. This is where Jesse Jackson was the alderman, but he, instead of building the community, he decided to become not alderman, but congressperson. I don't know who the alderman is, but the alderman, and I think it was Bobby Rush or whatever, and the $5 million disappeared for the anti-violence and that. The whole point is they had bad leadership. So you got beautiful churches that can be revitalized, clean this up, revitalize it. And so I don't know what they're doing. And these means all black-run companies can work down here in the construction, revitalization industry, and be down here and bringing this industry up. Bringing this community up. And that starts black-run businesses. So everybody down here, and it employs them to beautify their area and so on. So I'm at a loss. The TV show, the Chicago PD, and that ain't shit. That's a couple people. Even behind the cameras, it's not that many people. But doing these other things is incredible, can bring them unbelievable amount of water. But the TV shows can highlight the improvements in them. Truly. Like how the medical industry or the Chicago Med is improving, and how, award-winning, and we have the leading brain surgery or heart surgery, and then Chicago PD can talk about the latest in law enforcement and so on, and they can introduce technologies from 1871 or others in those shows. Chicago Fire can show the latest in firefighting technology and so on. And yeah, they're like marketing, but it's actually a TV show, and you're integrating technologies in it, and you're getting it out there, and they're actually showing Chicago in a positive light, how they're coordinating and firefighters are working better together, and how they're making the city safer, and how they're fighting fire better and so on. And they can change it, and how Chicago PD is working, and they're decreasing gang violence and murder rates and domestic violence and drug abuse and many other things. And the show can show how they're improving the city. So you change the narrative of the show, the focus of the city's decaying to rising Chicago. That's what I agreed with Rahm. Instead of dropping the ball, he was raising the star. Chicago rising. So, but you would have to change the minds of the writers of the show to change the format from doom and gloom to unbelievable future prosperity. And how law enforcement is getting so efficient, and how the gang task force is, taking down gangs and destroying them and incinerating, and how the city is getting safer and better, and how effective Chicago PD is. So, changing the narrative. So we're down here, and you got beautiful lakefront, and then you go into McCormick Place. So Chicago McCormick Place. So again, I think they got the shows all wrong. Instead of saying how great the Chicago police are and how efficient they are, and Chicago PD can be emphasizing how efficient they are and how clean they are, and how Chicago cops are good guys, and they're clean, and they're working on their issues, and they're cleaning up anything within the police force, and how internal affairs is helping better and improve the purity and ethical actions of Chicago police. So yeah, internal affairs through Chicago PD and how they're working. Like Black Rain is about internal affairs and how they helped him see the light. Truly, how they helped him see the light, and how he cleaned up and became he went to Japan and met Asian guy, and he talked about shaming and losing face and how disgraceful it was to be involved in corruption and so on. And so, again, they can change the narrative of Chicago PD where things are working better and the units are working better and they have their challenges, but they're overcoming them. And the end result is that Chicago PD is improving the city, and internal affairs is helping to improve Chicago policing, meaning Chicago police officers. They're becoming more ethical. They're becoming, better at what they do, just like Chicago Med can show it. Latest technology, we're the leaders in heart surgery, brain surgery, like Cook County. They mentioned that in The Fugitive, that Cook County was one of the leading hospitals in the country and world in prosthetic limbs, because the guy who killed his wife got his prosthetic limb from Cook County, and they talk about how Cook County was on the cutting edge of prosthetic technology and so on, and they raved about Cook County Hospital in many good ways. So he wasn't part of the guy who got it. It wasn't the hospital that was the bad guy. The hospital didn't know he was a bad guy, but they gave him this prosthetic limb that helped him function and so on, and how the Cook County was on the cutting edge of prosthetic technology. And so talking in Chicago PD about how Chicago PD is on the cutting edge of police technology and how they're integrating with their systems and everything. And they can do things with crowd control, bring up events, and how they're introducing and managing these systems and crowd control, making police more effective with crowd control and so on. And so they can work and show Chicago in a positive light, and they get all their things. They get the bad guy who's dealing drugs, but they bust him, and then maybe they reform him, or they save his little brother, or save his sister from a life of crime, and they help turn them, and they become better, and the CIs end up cleaning themselves up, and they find jobs, and they become successful, and it's all because of Chicago PD helped them see the light and the wrongs of their ways, and help them move forward in a positive manner, and how their CIs are helping make the city better. Yeah, their CIs, their confidential informants, and how they're making the city better. So they can change the Chicago Med, Chicago PD, Chicago Fire, and like I said, innovations and safety, because the fire department does more than fire. They do earthquakes, they do floods, they do mudslides. It depends on where you are. They fight forest fires. Oh yeah, we need the Chicago Fire Department. If there's a forest fire, they're going to have to respond to the forest fire. So they're going to have to be smoke jumpers, per se. So again, there is more than just fighting fire. They deal with mudslides, car accidents, many other situations besides fires. And they can emphasize that in the show. They can emphasize these different challenges like floods and how they do in the rescue, like say the Chicago River overflowed, and how they're working to save and move these people away, and making sure that they don't drown in the flood, and how they're helping protect the houses, and then how they're helping to get the community to recover from the flood, and helping manage the water and the drainage and so on, because the water has to recede and so on. And the fire department can be part of that, working with the Department of Water Management and the Department, I think, Canals or Rivers or whatever. I forget what division manages that. But they can do this in the writing, and they can put it into a positive spin on how Chicago is rising. Their medical, their fire, their police, the city, the citizens, and how they're improving. Even Hill Street Blues, if you look about it, the whole show was about Chicago getting better, about Huggy Bear working and the cooperation with the gang guy. I forget the Latino guy. He played one of the bigwigs with gangs, and then Huggy Bear was the one who was a pimp, and he had his, and how they were working together with the police to improve Chicago. Truly, Hill Street Blues. You had the guy with the gangs and helping the police. You got the pimp helping the police, and they say it throughout the show. I loved how we're trying to make Chicago a better city, making it safer and so on. And the ultimate end goal was to make Chicago better, to improve the quality of life and do all these things that are positive. So where are they doing that with these shows? They seem to be depravity, and Chicago's falling, and Chicago's scum, and Chicago's filth. Well, I don't think so in that way, but you try to drive me crazy. A paramedic technology can be brought in, and how they're saving lives, and how they're responding to calls better, and how they have better equipment and better setups, and how they're improving the ability to respond and save lives, and these cutting edge things that's through Chicago Fire. Talking about this Rampart, right? I watched Rampart. It was about a California fire department and a paramedic unit, and how they were doing these surgeries in paramedic unit. They had the surgeons, and they were on the phone, and the paramedics were actually doing surgery in the back of the ambulance as they were transporting them, because the surgery had to be now, and so they connect them with the surgeons from the hospital. Now we can do video connection, live feed, and the surgeons can work with them and help them do this life-saving procedure in the ambulance, and then they get them to the hospital, the stable, and then the doctors take over from the paramedics. And so it's all about making things better. CHIPS was all about making the city of California safer and better, and truly how they're improving it, and how things are getting better, and they have this task force tackling this issue, and this task force tackling that issue, and how the whole goal is to get the city better. The city's not dying, the city is getting better. So, but you still have your issues, and so the show goes on, but the city is constantly improving. The fire and the med and the police and the city, it's constantly getting more beautiful, and they can show that through the show. The new construction, truly going in, and a construction person fell, and the fire department is working with OSHA, Occupational Health and Safety, and they had this accident on the job site, and the fire department is helping give information to OSHA and the Department of Labor, and they're working with insurance companies, and they bring in the insurance companies like Equitable or Zurich, and the agent from Zurich is working with the Chicago Fire Department, understanding what happened, and they're going to put these policies and procedures in place with the insurance company so they can feature Zurich Insurance and Allstate and State Farm on the show. Chicago Fire. And you're the insurance investigator, because they do have insurance investigators working with the fire department investigators, and they're working together to solve this crime, the insurance investigator with the fire department investigator. And so you can put all these into the show. Somebody's choking on some food at Mariano's, and the paramedics respond, and then they give them the Heimlich and clear them, and then they come back. The fire department is going to do CPR training at Mariano's, and how they're trying to make things safer in grocery business for the people their customers and for their employees, and the paramedics and fire department are doing this training, and they're teaching them evacuation training because there was a fire and somebody got injured, and so now the fire department is helping them put in procedures on evacuation and so on to improve safety features. And they're working with ADT, who does the fire safety and, manages the sprinkler systems and, the other fire or the other safety systems, the automatic electronic defibrillators and the CPR systems that are in Mariano's to take care of, injured people, staff and customers. And so that's all in the show, right? And then they get paid from these organizations as part of it. Allstate is mentioned in the show, and they have Allstate coming in. There's claims for the fire, and they have to talk to the fire department about what happened, and then, so these are all storylines, and you really want Allstate to be in the show. You really want State Farm to be in the show. You really want Zurich to be in the show. You really want OSHA to be in the show and the Department of Labor and show how things are supposed to work, And there could be a bank robbery and the Chicago police are responding and they're working with the FBI and so on. And then how the security, private security in the bank with the cameras and the alarm responses and how they should handle it. If the police can do the training, Chicago PD coming in and training bank personnel. They never trained us on how we're supposed to respond to a bank robbery. How we're supposed to respond to a bank robbery. What we should do and so on. There was never training. I worked for a bank, Horizon Federal. They never trained me on they showed me the die packs and, the silent alarm, but we never did any training. And so Chicago PD coming in because there was a bank robbery, and they're coming in and working with the FBI and setting up training and then working with private security. I don't know. I just saw some private security, but I'll say ADT. And, we're working with them on alarm systems and other safety systems and procedures and how they should handle a bank robbery, how they should respond to the bank robbers. And we're doing all this training and creating all this safety. So when they get robbed, they can work with the bank robbers and make sure they save everybody's life. So learn, how we cooperate and how we give them what they want and not get killed in the process. And so the end goal, you have insurance. And then Zurich comes in and says, don't worry about the $1 million that was stolen. Zurich Insurance will make CIB Bank whole. And, so we're glad that everybody is safe. And we'll do our investigation and we'll find the criminals and so on. But the important thing is don't worry about the missing money. Zurich Insurance will cover it and the bank will be made whole. So don't worry about the $1 million that was stolen or the 100,000 or 10,000 that was stolen. Like black is beautiful. Yeah. So BB. And the implied is. So B is B, but black is beautiful. Great shirt. So white is beautiful. Asian is beautiful. And so on. So you can have a lot of different, it's a whole t-shirt industry for different races and ethnicities. And they're beautiful. So anyways, here, let me go down Lakeshore Drive this way. So, heading to Hyde Park. So anyways, they can do these things to make things incredibly wonderful. And it's beautiful down here. Lakeshore Drive, heading to Hyde Park, this incredible university that's surrounded by black people. But it's funny how all these black people are surrounded by Illinois Institute of Technology, UIC, University of Chicago, all these incredible schools, and then University of Chicago Hospital and so on. And they don't seem to want to embrace it. And, all these things can bring many blessings to their neighborhoods and to their people. And as the university grows in prestige, so does the neighborhood. All the value of the houses go up. Oh, yeah. As the University of Chicago becomes more famous and globally more prestigious, all this real estate down here that's all owned by black people around the university becomes worth a ton more. Tons and tons and tons more. So if black people would just embrace the university and they work together like black people by IIT, the whole neighborhood area around Illinois Institute of Technology is black. So if they would just embrace the school and work with the school and try to make it prominent, they don't have to attend the school. They live in the community, so they have a vested interest in the school. And the school has a vested interest in them. So if they work together, the school becomes more prominent, they become more prominent, and everybody's better off. So I don't know what black leadership is doing, but it seems to me it's failing, and failing. Like Thomas said, it's been failing. So they need to pick their champions. Maybe Oprah comes back to Chicago, or maybe Stedman Graham becomes a leader in the black community in Chicago. So, and then he gets full support from his wife, Oprah. So, bringing up and working with the University of Chicago, Oprah ever think about working with, they have a drama program. Not just Northwestern, but University of Chicago has a drama program. And she can work with them and through them. And so, again, bringing this area to more prominent. So, this is all owned by black people. So, they're only in the misery because they want it. When they choose to get out of it, they can choose to get out of it. It can change overnight by them choosing it. Not by the Chicago police, not by the mayor, by the community making the decision to change it. And if you look at Curtis and the Guardian Angels, the community made a decision to change everything. So it's really in the community's hands. So they can empower themselves or play the victim. And they're both the victim and the perpetrator. They're both the victim and the perpetrator. So they're two-faced, like in Batman. They're the good side and the bad side. They're both the victim and the perpetrator. So it's up to them. Do they want to change it and stop becoming a victim and stop being a perpetrator and turn the community into all good? But the only one that can do that truly is black people have to make a decision. I've been talking to them. It's all in your hands, and you have to make the decision. That's why I said God watches what's in your heart. And you have to choose to change. But it's all in your hands. So here's a beautiful field down here. And I don't know what this is. I used to have John Sims come down here, and this is how I went back. So he lives down here, or did live down here. And if he's dead, God rest his soul. He's a very good guy. I like John a lot. And so hopefully one day I'll see him in heaven. So anyways, and he suffered and lived with pain, and he still did all the right things. So he was a good example for the black community. He cared for his family and tried to do the best by them. So, very good man. So, it was a pleasure to have him as a client. So, it's all up to them. So if they want it to be better, if they want it to be a nightmare, they controlled it. So if they want it to be a nightmare, it was them making it a nightmare. And when they want it to be better, it's them making it better. So they get all the glory, but also they get all the wrath of God. So they have to choose. Do they want the glory of God or do they want the wrath of God? So it's all in their hands. And as my partner David, and I didn't know this, and then I looked into it, there's more black churches than anything. And so the church is very powerful in the black community. So I don't get it. And so Brenda, God rest her soul, she was a great lady, and she was going to bring me into the black churches. So, but she died before it kicked off. But she led the praise movement, just like Glow. She led the praise segment, and these women were big advocates of me. So she was going to bring me, Brenda, into the black churches. And we were going to do financial literacy and other programs and try to help turn around things in the black community. But she ended up getting cancer and dying. But she took care of her family very well. And she was very healthy. And we were moving on a very good pace together. So, and eventually me, David, and that would have been down in the black community trying to do everything possible to move it into the right direction. And I didn't know how many black churches there are, but there's a ridiculous amount of black churches. So with all that, per se, loving of Jesus, God should be very powerful in the black community. And so changing things and moving things into a positive manner should be, but I don't know where all the youth groups are in the black community, because if you had a lot of youth groups in the churches, then they wouldn't be in the gangs. So it would totally change anything, but I don't know where the youth groups are. So, and then you can bring down Young Life and many other youth organizations, Boys and Girls Club, and so on. And you can totally change things in the black community. So the black church can totally change things, and then they can work with senior movements and senior groups and so on. And so, and maybe they need Alcoholics Anonymous, Narcotics Anonymous, Celebrate Recovery, and then, Kleptomania Anonymous for thieves and so on. And they can bring these initiatives to the black community and allow them to change and become better. The whole point of Anonymous is you're part of the group and you're making change and you're keeping it to yourself as you're going through the change. So when you emerge from the change, it's a whole new you, and you fully repented and you fully changed. So it's up to them if they want to create this movement. And Milt Rosenberg, who I used to listen to on WGN all the time, Uncle Milty, he raved about the University of Chicago's theology program. And you think the black churches would tap into the theology program at the University of Chicago and have their pastoral staff go to the University of Chicago. And oh yeah, that's right. The University of Chicago has a program that if you're a person in financial need, all you have to do is be able to get into the University of Chicago and then graduate, and you can take out all the student loans necessary to pay for the University of Chicago and to give you financial assistance while you're going. And the University of Chicago, if you graduate, will pay off every penny of those loans. So you think the black churches down here would be sending people to the University of Chicago Theology School, and those loans for theology school would be covered by the University of Chicago, paying for their pastoral staff in the black community. And from my understanding, it's an outstanding theology program. So one of the best, but most of all the Ivy League schools, if you don't know it, they're all unbelievably all have theology programs that are very devout into Christianity. And the University of Chicago is the Ivy League of the Midwest. And with that, they have a deep theology program, a very vast and old theology program. And so do every single Harvard, you name it. They're unbelievably Christian-based organizations, and they have immense theology programs. They don't mention that at Harvard, but Harvard, Yale, and all of them have very prominent theology programs. So, University of Chicago, and there used to be a theology school right next to Northwestern, and I don't know if it merged with Northwestern. But again, all the pastors down here could work with the University of Chicago theology program, and they can also do internships in the black churches. People in the theology program, now there's Wheaton College in the burbs, but that's different. That's for the suburban churches. The University of Chicago can have their kids intern in the black churches in the community. So they can do volunteer work in the black churches, which they can make it mandatory. If you're in a theology program, you have to volunteer for the black churches in the communities that's around the University of Chicago. And then you can do internships, and the University of Chicago pays for the internship. The church doesn't. The University of Chicago pays for you to be an intern at a black church, helping with their youth programs, helping bring their adult ministry, helping build their senior ministry. And so the University of Chicago can help build the community with the church. And so there can be this initiative that intertwines, and then that means ITT, same thing with the financial district and all that. ITT does high-speed trading and many other things. And the black community can work with IIT, and then they can get internships, work at the Futures Exchange and so on. They can have runners or other things. And so they can work in internships. They can work in internships at the University of Chicago. Truly, some type of, initiative for black youth to work in, and it can be the janitorial program. I used to, as a child, I cleaned up the park district. I worked for the park district, and I mopped and cleaned. Officially worked in 7th grade, but I worked before 7th grade, from kindergarten actually, and I mopped the mats and cleaned the park unofficially. And so they can work with the University of Chicago, and they can create all these programs for black youth to work. And they can work with the University of Chicago security and, have a youth advocate that works with the youth in the black community. And so they can get these liaisons that are young pastors, youth pastors, that work with the University of Chicago safety and security, and they work through the youth pastors to talk to the youth community. And so they have relations, and the University of Chicago security meets with the youth pastors to figure out initiatives and things that can make things safer and better for them and for the University of Chicago faculty and staff and students. And so they can work together in harmony, and so they can work through this as an extension. These are public relations officers. That's why you have the community service officers. They're doing security, but they're also public service officers. And so they can work with the community, from the youth to the adults to the seniors, to help improve the community, like the DeSable High School, right? I think that's the high school. And so I don't know if they have any kind of extension or relationship. And so some people that work here can teach at the high school. Surely. Teach biology. Surely teach biology at the high school. They know biology. We dissected a fetal pig in high school, and I learned the biology of a fetal pig. I had to remove the organs and, the different things, and formaldehyde stinks. That's all I got to say. But we worked on a fetal pig, and we dissected it and removed all the organs, and you learn about the different systems. But that was training on anatomy and internal, learning about the skin and everything else. So, again, they can work with the community. And so you can have these initiatives. And so I don't understand, because my friend, he worked for the endowment fund, and University of Chicago has one of the biggest endowment funds of any university. Harvard and that's bigger, but if things go right, it can expand massively, and then they invest in the community and get a return off the community. And so it can be a very good win-win thing. So I don't understand. And my friend from the endowment fund said they keep on wanting to invest and beautify and expand the community, but the community doesn't seem to want to work with them. And truly, they've had problems. So somehow they have to get on the same page, because if they do, it's mutually beneficial to both. So I don't understand what's going on. There's so much opportunity around them that they would just lay down the guns, get rid of the gangs, clean up the neighborhoods, and move to a brighter future. So it seems like a no-brainer, right? Because instead of worrying about if you're going to get shot or OD or get raped or robbed or murdered or whatever, that all disappears. And the community moves into prominence, and then they can set examples for black people around the country and around the world. They can set the examples for Africa instead of Africa setting the examples for them. Because as far as I see, Ghana is 10 times more advanced than they are. They seem primitive. They seem like a more advanced civilization. They're poorer. Here they're richer. But their culture and their attitudes are unbelievably good. So, they should be setting the examples. They're given the most, but they're failing. So they need to turn that around and be a leader in the world. Truly, leading the black community forward into better days, domestically and globally. That means the Caribbean and Africa, and then black people around the world and other countries. So maybe one day they'll step up. That's what I've been hoping, that there be a holy fire lit under them and they transform and see the light and repent and change and move forward into the Holy Land. So here's a little bit of a revitalization, but they didn't do anything with that. But they have a little restaurant. I think it opened, but nice right off the train. Get something to eat when you get off, get something to eat before you get on, or catch something to go. So not too bad. A little Domino's driver next to me. And those are efficient ways to get around. Now in Asia, scooters are all over the place. So traffic's a little bit heavier, meaning, things are tighter, and they do a lot of deliveries via scooter. So, and it's highly efficient and everything. So anyways, makes sense to me. So anyways, this is all Hyde Park I've been driving through. And again, this is all controlled by black people. So again, and if they work with the universities around here, and then they bring in the businesses and all the opportunity for prosperity, and they bring the universities prosperity, they bring the universities prosperity, universities bring them prosperity, and that means they're working together with the churches and everything else. So then you get the community CAP, community area policing, And so everybody plays their role, and things can be a brighter tomorrow, right? A city, Chicago Rising, like Rahm Emanuel, I agreed with that. Chicago Skyway to Indiana. This area is very close to Indiana, right over the border from Indiana. Once you cross over, you're in all the casinos and all that. And so, again, they're not far. They can work with the casinos and that, meaning people here can work for the casinos in Indiana. It's just minutes away, a half an hour away, I think. So they can work in Indiana and live in Chicago. So lots of opportunity for people in this area. They just don't see it. And so somebody needs to shed the light on it. Open the eyes of my heart, Lord, to let me see how it truly is. And I'm trying to open the eyes to the opportunity so you can see how it truly is. So you've been missing the opportunity. So, the diamond in the rough. You got to clean off and polish the diamonds so they can see the light. So, again, there can be great things. Raise Roof Supply. So, yeah, a lot of roofs around here. So, I don't know if there's any black-owned roofing companies. So, if there isn't, then Raise Roof Supply can also start Raise Roofing Company, a subsidiary of Raise Roofing Supply. So, we can give it to do it yourself, or we can do it for you. Or it can be a combination of both. You do certain things, we do certain things. So, again, another church here in the black community. Lots of churches in the black community. So, anyways, hopefully, one day they'll see the promised land. So, that's all I've been hoping for, and, and trying to create. So I'll post this to YouTube. There's a car wash, and Urban Ministries is right around here too. So I haven't been there in a long time, but I know from the car wash, Urban Ministries is somewhere around here if you've never seen it. The whole point of Urban Ministries is to end violence in the city. Truly. The shelters just became a necessity, but the initiative of Urban Ministry was to end violence in the city, particularly to end violence in the black community. And so that was the whole focus of Urban Ministry, and the lady who started it was to end violence. Particularly, number one was gun violence in the black community, but domestic violence, all forms of violence in the black community. That was what Urban Ministries' focus was, ending violence in the black community. So, and, having people following traffic rules would help, end road rage. And if you get less road rage, then you get less violence in the black community. And so Urban Ministries' focus was to end all forms of violence in the black community. And if it's not staying on its mission and achieving its mission, then may it burn in eternal damnation, because that is its core mission, not as a shelter, as changing hearts and souls and minds and ending all forms of violence in the black community. And that includes domestic violence, gun violence, all forms, gang violence, you name it. It is to end all forms of violence in the black community, where black communities becomes peaceful and loving, like I experienced in Ghana. Very peaceful and very loving people. So maybe they should, think about becoming more Ghanaian. Because the aspects of them, I went into their schools and everything. The students were awesome, ready to learn, very disciplined, truly very friendly, and they're just hungry for education, for development. And they're just waiting. So if I was advising Vanguard, I would heavily invest in Ghana. So anyways, I'm going to end this video and figure out where I am and move to another part of Chicago.